Welcome students. So in the previous class we learned about how to prepare the cost sheet and how to calculate the different sub costs and finally arrive at the total cost of production and the operating profit. Now preparation of the cost sheet is one thing, but analyzing the cost sheet is other thing. Preparation of the cost sheet is the part of cost accounting, but analyzing the cost sheet and drawing the relevant information, useful information and using it in the decision making is the part of the management accounting. So cost accounting and management accounting and in some cases even the financial accounting goes hand in hand. All these three different types of accounting systems or say types of accountings, they go hand in hand. So sometime we will be taking the help of financial accounting, sometime we taking the help of cost accounting, sometime we taking the help of both financial and cost accounting, and finally say arriving at some relevant decisions on the basis of the information which is generated by the financial accounting and cost accounting, and then we are say depending upon this information and taking the final decisions in the business. Now for example, when we prepared this cost sheet here, we did not jump to the total cost directly, rather it is divided into the 4 costs. One was the prime cost, factory cost, cost of production and cost of sales. Now why we bifurcated this cost into the 4 sub components? Purpose is cost control, right. Now we will have to analyze it, that if our cost is going beyond the control, like see for example you look at here that we have calculated the operating profit, this is 26,250 looking at the total sales value of 189,500 rupees. Now we will have to think about that whether we are satisfied with this operating profit or our profiting is lesser than the other players in the market, and we have to increase the profit, we have to enhance the profit and we have to then do something which is helping us to reduce the cost, increase the profits. So if we want to increase the profit, you cannot touch the selling price because it is not determined by the firm, it is determined by the market or the market forces, so it is beyond control. Now we will have to match with the sales value or the selling price, and if you want to maximize the profit, you have to reduce the cost. Now how to reduce the cost? We have to now look at the different components. As I told you, the success mantra or the decision making rule in the management accounting we follow is the cost and benefit. Always we look at the cost of making a decision and the benefit available or expected to be there after implementing that decision. So if the cost is lesser than the benefit, then we will adopt the option, but if the cost is more than the or there is a minimum reduction in the cost, then we will not take that decision because benefit is not going to be the one or the amount which is going to be acceptable to us. Now let us understand and say assume that we want to reduce the cost, because the profit 26,000, we are not satisfied with this, we want to increase the profit. So what you have to do here is you have to reduce the cost. Now because we have the different components, if you look at the 4 sub costs here, biggest cost, the largest component of the cost in these 4 sub components is the prime cost. Next is the factory cost, then is the cost of production and finally the cost of sales. So it means, as I told you, cost and benefit analysis, we should hit upon that particular problem whereby putting in some efforts we get the maximum benefit. So for example, you are given here the say one item, for example storekeeper wages. We have a storekeeper who takes the wages of 1,000 rupees per month, and we want to replace him with another storekeeper. If we assume that he is say charging too much, we have to have another guy who may be agreeing on the wages which is lesser than 1,000 rupees. So how much maximum reduction you can achieve? Maximum 900, somebody will another guy will come or agree for 900 rupees, or maybe the lowest maybe somebody may agree for the 800 rupees. So how much we saved? Only 200 rupees, 100 or 200 rupees, and for that we have to look for the person, we have to convince him, we have to train him, we have to say incur some other expenses, hiring cost, training cost, retaining cost, so many other costs are there. but the saving is just 200 rupees. So, we will not go for that kind of the process. If you look at the prime cost, this is the biggest, largest component of the total cost, and in this prime cost also we have the three costs. One cost is the direct material, then is the direct labor, and then is the direct expenses. Largest component in the prime cost is again the direct material. So, we should look upon the direct material cost because it is the biggest component. It is the biggest component. So, because what is our total cost? If we see the total cost here, the total cost here we have calculated is the say 1,63,250, and out of this 1,63,250, 1 lakh is just the material cost. So, we will start from here. If the cost reduction has to be achieved, we have to start from here. Look at the material cost and think about that if our material cost is 100,000 rupees, how much is the material cost of our competitors? We will try to find out that information from their cost sheet. Though it is not available easily, but still we will have to make efforts and try to find out it. Or even we are not worried about our competitors, we ourselves feel that our material cost is very high, we should think of reducing it. And if we think about that, even we achieve a 10% reduction in the cost of material, 10% reduction in the cost of the material. So, it means we will be saving how much? 10,000 rupees, and it is a acceptable sizable amount. If we make some efforts, we can save 10% cost of the material, we can save 10,000 rupees. If we increase it to 15%, we save 15,000 rupees, and somehow if we are able to reduce the material cost by 1/5 or maybe 20%, then your material cost will be coming down by 20,000 rupees. And if we are able to achieve this reduction in the cost of material by 20,000 rupees, then almost our operating profit will become double. So, we should always focus upon the largest component, and largest component we saw here is the prime cost, and in the prime cost itself it is a material cost, and controlling the material cost is within our hands. That we can do if we look for the better suppliers, if we look for the suppliers in the say maybe not in India, but in the other countries, I think we can achieve this target. As I am telling you these days, government has introduced in the manufacturing sector especially, government has introduced one clause, and that clause is called as the clause of global sourcing. Government says that you manufacture the best product and at the minimum possible cost, and for reduction of the cost you should make use of the global sourcing. Global sourcing is like that whatever the raw material we require to manufacture the product we are manufacturing, the finished product we are manufacturing, look for the raw material for that product which is the best in quality and lowest in the price. And if that material is not available within the country, then even you may go out of the country, import it and then bring it, so that you can save upon the cost, you can get the best quality of the material, and then sometimes say you can say produce the best product. For example, now the companies, I take the example of a simple product like potato chips. We purchase potato chips from the market. Many companies are manufacturing it. Pepsi is manufacturing, and sometimes other companies are also manufacturing. Now Indian companies Haldiram and others have also started manufacturing the potato chips. And potato chips main raw material is the potato. When you talk about the potato for manufacturing the potato chips of the quality of these multinationals, the chips they are manufacturing for us, they do not compromise with the quality of the potato. So, initially when the good quality potato was not available in India, they were even importing it from the other countries to manufacture the best product. Now they have started say helping the farmers, guiding the farmers, training the farmers that how to grow the best quality of the potatoes. For example, you talk about the McDonald's. McDonald's sells one important product, one good product, that is the French fries, and you might have seen the size of the French fries sometimes, that is very long, and you can see that it comes out of the potato, so you can see the size of the potato also. Sometimes this quality of the potato is not available in India, they import it from the other countries, and if they have to buy it in India, they buy it from the best of the sources, so that the good quality material is purchased, and since they purchase in bulk, so automatically the cost comes down. So, global sourcing is a very important component. When we have to say produce the finished product in bulk, then certainly we should look for the best quality of the material and try to minimize the cost of production. Similarly, the companies, for example, who are depending upon the agricultural material as their input, means they are manufacturing the products which is based upon the agriculture material. For example, you talk about the ITC, Indian Tobacco Company, which is manufacturing many consumer products. You talk about the wheat flour, they are manufacturing wheat flour Ashirvad, the brand owned by the company is wheat flour. Patanjali is again manufacturing the wheat flour. So, and many other companies are manufacturing the wheat flour. It is a agriculture say product, base product. So, to reduce the cost of production, these companies buy the wheat during the season. When there is a harvest season, they buy it from the farmers directly, they buy it in the bulk. So, they are able to buy the best quality of the wheat at the cheapest prices, and finally, they are convert that into the very good quality product and at a very, say you can call it as acceptable, I will not call it as a competitive, but the acceptable price to the consumers. So, for example, you talk about the mustard oil. Mustard oil is such a product. Establishing the project of the mustard oil is sometimes seems to be very easy, but say making it cost effective is very difficult because say the cost of the mustard seeds plus the processing cost is, if you add up the total cost and then you try to find out the cost of the per kg of the say mustard oil in the market. So, total cost or the selling price minus total cost, sometime the firm ends up making losses. So, if you have to really come out of the profit, means earn the profit in the mustard oil process or by manufacturing the mustard oil, one thing we have to do is that we have to buy the mustard seed during the season and that too in the bulk. If we are buying it during the season and that too in bulk, certainly the mustard, if it is normally available 30 rupees per kg, during the season it will be available at the half of the price, and if you buy directly from the farmers, certainly we are going to save upon the large cost. So, this way multinationals are saving upon a single penny even sometimes, and that say translates into the bigger saving, larger saving, and finally that profit adds up to the profit to the millions of the rupees. So, always think upon the biggest component of the cost and try to reduce it, and if you are able to, if you succeed by even reducing the cost by 10%, then you can see that we are saving the major chunk of the cost. So, material is the one we have to take into account here. Second is the direct labor. Normally the labor rates are governed by the market. Labor rates are governed by the market, not by say the hirer who wants to hire the labor. So, whatever the market rates are decided, we have to pay that rate. But sometimes what happens that in some markets the labor available is in, say you can call it as, the labor is in abundance. Labor is in abundance. So, it means if the local labor is not available and if it is available at a very high price, we can think of even importing the labor. We can bring in India, in any part we are manufacturing the product and using the labor, maybe skilled or unskilled, and if the local labor is asking for the very high price, we can think of say bringing the people from the other states where it is in surplus, and if you bring them, even you pay the their lodging and boarding cost, even then it comes down seriously. So, we can think about whether we can reduce the labor cost, because it is the second highest component in this information, and even the labor also, if you save even the 10% of the cost, you are going to save 2,500 rupees. Other components are not very large, say other overheads are 5,000 are direct expenses, then if you see factory rent is 5,000 rupees. So, factory rent, say reducing it from 5,000 rupees is not possible for us, and we should not spend time on this, we should not waste time on this. Manager salary, manager is a permanent employee, you can reduce from 5,000 to 4,000 rupees, that is not possible. So, in this information, if you analyze the whole information, you can find out that reducing any cost on any other head is not possible. We should only focus upon the largest component, so that by making the minimum efforts, we can have the maximum benefits, we can have the maximum savings, and the total cost of production comes down to a significant extent. So, you see that when you have prepared the cost sheet this way, we prepare the prime cost and finally we prepare the cost of sales. So, we have got the figure 1,63,250, and now we have found out that in this 1,63,000, the larger chunk of the cost is the prime cost, which is I think more than 80%, which is 130,000 rupees. So, if any control of the cost has to be attained or to be exercised, then we should hit upon the prime cost, because other components of the cost have no scope. means in the factory cost also or in the factory overheads also there is no scope, in the cost of production also, in the administrative overheads there is no scope, in the selling and distribution overheads we are paying the minimum cost and there is also no scope. So, this is the one important purpose for preparing the cost sheet or the statement of the cost this way, that we have to know the different components. For example, if you are not preparing the cost sheet in this way and you are not knowing what is your prime cost, what is your factory cost, what is your administrative cost and what is the cost of sales, then how to exercise the control? We will not be able to know it, which component is contributing maximum to the cost. So, this way we are knowing about that which component of the cost is contributing maximum, how to control it and how to bring the cost down, so that the gap between the cost and the selling price may be maximized and your operating profit comes out to be maximum, right. So, this is simple cost sheet, and the say process of analyzing the cost sheet, simply the principle of the cost and benefit analysis, that always hit upon that component of the cost which is largest, which is maximum, and if you save even 5, 10 or 20% or 15, 20%, then we can say finally in the absolute values we save the maximum amount. Now, we go to the next part in the cost sheet, and the next part in the cost sheet is say going to the next step of learning about the cost sheet and making some adjustment. And the one important adjustment in the cost sheet is the treatment of stock, treatment of the stock. We have not done any treatment of the stock in the first problem. It was very simple problem, straight problem, no wrinkles, no twists and turns, nothing. Information was simple, only we had to say drop some information, but other information was direct. Here now we have to do some adjustments for the stock or treatment of the stock. Now, the treatment of the stock is means how we have to do it. For that, first of all we must be knowing what are the different types of the stocks. First stock is the raw material, stock of raw material. Stock of raw material, this is one. Second is the stock of WIP, work in process, and third stock is, that is the stock of finished goods, stock of finished goods. These are the three stocks, right. So, as we arrived at the total cost of the material, because it was given in the first problem to us, so in that case there was no problem for us. It means because it was given to us, direct material is 100,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupees. So, we had to not to calculate it, but it was directly given to us, no adjustment of the stock was required to be done. But in the normal circumstances it does not happen. You have to treat the stock, you have to adjust the stock, because you are given the different figures of the stocks. You are given the different figures of the stocks. You have the opening stock information, you have the closing stock information, you have the purchases information, you have the information with regard to the say carriage on the purchases. So, you have to make some adjustments, and after making these adjustments you will have to arrive at one figure, and that figure is called as the figure of raw material consumed. So, calculating the raw material consumed is not very easy, we will have to find it out. Now, how to find it out or how to go for the treatment of the stock, that is the point we are going to learn here. So, again for example, we are preparing the cost sheet, I am quickly preparing the pro forma, this is the pro forma of the cost sheet, right. Now, we are preparing the normal cost sheet as we have done in the first problem. So, what we have to find out here is that is the cost of raw material consumed. Now, for example, if I show you this problem, in this problem cost of raw material consumed is not directly given to us. You are given 2-3 types of information. One information is cost of raw material, you have the opening stock, you have the closing stock and then is the you have the say one more information, something like that, purchases of raw material. So, minimum 3 informations are there, and we have to take these 3 informations into account. So, it is called as the treatment of the stock, and we must treat the stock properly so that we can calculate the cost of raw material consumed, right. So, for calculating the cost of raw material consumed, what you have to do is you have to start here with say opening stock of raw material, opening stock of raw material, right here. Put it in the inner column. This column is called as, when you write it from the say left hand side of this line, that is called as the opening stock of raw material. Do not take it to this column directly, right, put it in the inner column. Then you write add purchases, right, add purchases, and if you are given the information about the carriage on purchases, then you write here add carriage on purchases COP. Put all these things and add them together, put a line here, and then you will get some one figure here. Okay, total it up, that is the opening stock of raw material, purchases and the cost of purchases, and then you do here is that is less closing stock CS, I am writing here closing stock of raw material RM, closing stock of raw material, right. So, you take the closing stock of raw material, subtract it, and finally you will arrive at one figure, and that figure is called as the, you do not write the total here, straightway you take the total here, and that means that figure will become as cost of, this is the raw material less sorry closing stock of raw material, and finally when you arrive at this figure here, you write here cost of raw material consumed, cost of raw material consumed. So, do not write this total here, take the total in the outer column here, right. So, we have not to write this, we have to do like this. So, put everything in the inner column, opening stock of raw material, add purchases, add cost of purchases, carriage on purchases. So, total it up, these three things total up, less closing stock of raw material, and finally you come out with the information that is called as cost of raw material consumed. So, this is how we treat the raw material stock, or the stock of the raw material, or say treatment of the stock, that is the stock of raw material, right. And in this, then we will add up what? We will add up the direct wages, then we will add up the direct other expenses, right, and finally you will arrive at something like that which is called as prime cost. This cost will be called as prime cost. So, here you are at the prime cost. Once you calculated the prime cost, then you proceed further for calculating the factory cost, and like as we have done in the previous statement, add up the factory overheads, or the sometime it is written as works overheads, factory overheads or the works overheads. So, you add up like normally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this, put all these overheads in the inner column, put all these overheads in the inner column, do not take them to the outer column, make all calculations in the inner column, only one figure will go to the outer column. Number 1, it will go to the say raw material consumed will come here, and then the direct wages information will be here. So, direct wages information, it will not be here, for example, sorry, it will not be here, it will directly go to the outer column. So, it will go to the outer column here, this is the direct wages, this is the other, and finally this will become the. So, whatever the raw material related cost and the items, that they will be in the inner column, because we have to treat the stock, adjust the stock. For calculation of the cost of raw material consumed, you have to put the items relating to raw material in the inner column, and only one figure will come out as the cost of raw material consumed. Then direct wages is independent, no treatment, no adjustment, direct overheads, no treatment, no adjustments, and finally in the outer column we have the prime cost. So, we are again having the 3 figures or 4 figures in the outer column. One is cost of raw material consumed, direct wages, direct other expenses, and finally the prime cost. Now, in this, go ahead after calculating the prime cost, add the factory overheads, and normally as we have done in the previous problem, you add up the factory overheads and total it up in the inner column. Do not write in the outer column anything, and then add here at whatever the total comes here, you write here at opening stock of WIP. WIP means work in process, add it up here, put a line here, show the total amount here, and write less closing stock of WIP. Right, subtract it, put a line here, and now what it becomes, that is the total factory or works cost. This is the total factory or the works cost. You can calculate this cost as total factory or this is the total factory cost, and only again one figure will come here, that is the total factory cost. So, in this case what is happening, total factory cost will become like this, that less the raw material say consumed. So, it means the total factory overheads are this. So, we are taking this figure, only one figure, but it comes out here, we will be putting this figure here and finally adding it up here. So, it will become the total factory cost. So, we have calculated the prime cost, here it is there, then we added up the factory overheads in the inner column, then totaled up the factory overheads, added opening stock of work in process, then again totaling it up subtotal, then less closing stock of WIP, putting the item here, but finally after subtracting the closing stock you will not put the figure in the inner column, that final figure come in the outer column here. So, how many figures you have now? One is the material, this is the labor, this is the other overheads, this is the prime cost, and now this is the next item, that is the factory cost or the total factory cost, right. So, this is the treatment of the WIP or the treatment of the work in process. And now when you move to the treatment of the finished goods, again you have to go ahead like this, and here you have to write this. Once you calculated the factory cost, once you have calculated the factory cost, it is already there in the outer column, say then add administrative overheads, and again put all the administrative overheads in the inner column, and then you put a line here, and then you say you call it as total it up here, then add opening stock of finished goods. I am writing here FG, finished goods, put it here, put a line here, and then some total will come out, do not write anything here, only total, then less closing stock of finished goods, put here, put a line here, and finally when you total it up it will come here, that figure will come, total figure will come here, and then you will put a line here and it will become as the cost of production, this is the cost of production, it is the one more figure. Then you go ahead, so it means then you go ahead and add here, that is the add selling and distribution overheads, right. You put all the selling and distribution overheads and put this figure here, or because these are independent items, so we can take them directly in the outer column, put here, and this total will become the cost of sales. This will become as the cost of sales, right. So, this is, and then you have the say finally the sales figure, sales figure. So, you have the sales, this figure is given here, and the difference is the operating profit. This is the operating profit, right. So, the difference is the operating profit which will be here. So, it is the sales total cost plus operating profit, this is the total sales figure, this is the total sales value, right. So, this way we have to treat the stock. So, like the previous problem, you are not readily given the cost of raw material consumed, you are not given the say cost of you can call it as a factory cost, and you are not directly given the, or you cannot directly calculate the cost of production until and unless you treat the different types of the stocks. Three stocks are here: stock of raw material which will be treated in the prime cost, stock of WIP that will be treated in the factory cost, and the stock of finished goods opening as well as closing that will be treated in the for calculating the cost of production. So, once the cost of production is available with us, adding into that selling and distribution overheads, then finally you will arrive at the cost of sales, and then adding into that the margin we want to earn, the operating profit we want to earn, this total cost of sales and the say operating profit, total of these two things will give us the total sales value. So, sales information or the selling price we will take from the market, cost of production we will calculate ourselves, and difference between these two can automatically be calculated. So, this is how to prepare the cost sheet by treating the stock. Now, let us prepare the cost sheet from the information which is given in the next problem, right. So, here you are given the problem like you are given the cost of raw material, WIP, cost of finished goods, and then you are given some other information here, and you are asked finally prepare cost sheet showing material consumed, prime cost, factory cost incurred, and total factory cost, and finally prepare the income statement. It means the profit and loss account showing gross profit and net profit, right. So, now quickly let us prepare the cost sheet for this problem, and if you prepare the cost sheet for this problem, Then again the same process, same statement, simple statement, but after treating the stocks, right, after treating the stocks here. So, what is the problem given to us? Here the problem is the following information has been obtained from the records of the left center corporation for the period from December 1 to December 31, this is only for 1 month, 2017. You are given the information about the opening stock, closing stock and the other particulars, right. So, now if you take this information into account, then you have to take here, what you have to take here is there is a cost of raw material. After adjusting the say your raw material, then WIP, then cost of finished goods, say all the 3 stocks and adding up the further information, you will arrive at the total cost of production, right. So, we are talking about preparing the cost sheet of or statement of cost for left center corporation, right. So, again we are having the same format, it is again particulars, then we are having the cost per unit CPU, and then we are having the total cost rupees, total cost in rupees right. So, this is the format and now we will have to start say preparing it. So, first of all you take it as the opening stock of raw material, and how much is the opening stock of raw material given to you is, you can find out from this information is 30,000 is the opening stock, put it in the inner column. Then is the add purchases, which is how much, purchase figure is how much, this is 450,000 rupees, 450,000 rupees, this is something like this, and how much it is, this works out as 480,000 rupees. Then it is less closing stock of raw material. How much is the closing stock of raw material? It is just 25,000 rupees. So, finally, what we have calculated is cost of raw material consumed, and how much is the cost of raw material consumed? This is 455,000. 455,000 cost of raw material consumed, 455,000. Clear? Now, you add up in this wages cost, or what is the next head of the cost it is given to us is, that is the wages paid. So, add wages. How much are wages here? Wages cost given to us is, that is the say 230,000 I guess, wages is 230,000 rupees, 230,000 rupees, and anything else we have after the wages, anything else for this wages, factory overheads will go in the factory. So, I think for calculating the prime cost, this is the only information available, and if you take this information into account, so what will be called it as? It is called as prime cost. And how much is the prime cost? It is 0, 0, 0, 5, then it is 8, and then it is 685,000. Prime cost is 685,000. Then we are given straight with the factory overheads. Add factory overheads. Now, if you take the factory overheads into account, how much is the factory overheads are here? Factory overheads are only 92,000. So, directly put it here, we are not given small figures, we are given only one figure, that is factory overheads 92,000, right. And then is the total it up, it is called as factory cost incurred. This is called as factory cost incurred. Incurred means factory cost which is incurred in the current period. Factory cost which is incurred in the current period, that you have to take into account. So, factory cost incurred in this case is how much? This is 0, 0, 0, this is 7, this is 7, and this is 7. So, it is 700,000, 7 lakh 777,000. So, it means we have calculated the factory cost incurred, means that cost of the factory which is incurred in the present month. Now, in this, for calculating the total factory cost, you have to treat the stock of the say WIP. Now, what you have to do is add directly, you can say that is the say or sometimes because we have to treat the stock. So, I think it is better not to take the factory cost incurred say factory overheads, and in this case the factory cost incurred, yes, we can take it directly to the outer column, and then we will have to add here the opening stock of WIP. Opening stock of WIP, how much is opening stock of WIP? Let us check here. WIP's opening stock is 12,000 rupees. So, you put it here, there is no need to put it in the inner column now, directly you can put it in the outer column, and then you have to find out what is this value. This value works out as 00098 and this is 7, right, and then less it is the say this information is, that is the less closing stock of WIP. Closing stock of WIP is how much? Closing stock of WIP given to us is 15,000. So, it is the closing stock of WIP is 15,000, put it in the inner column directly and then say subtract it. So, if you calculate it, you can calculate it as a factory oblique works cost, or you call it as the total factory or the works cost. It is not a simple, means it is not the incurred cost, this is the total factory or the works cost. This cost is called as the total factory oblique works cost, and how much it is? This works out as 774,000. So, in this information or from this information you are only asked to calculate what? That is the information which is given, and what we are asked to calculate is cost of raw material consumed, prime cost and factory cost incurred and the total factory cost. After that, finished overheads and other things we have not to include here in this cost sheet, they have to be taken into account in the profit and loss account or income statement and not here. So, we have taken, in this case we have calculated the cost of raw material consumed, we have calculated the prime cost as it is asked, and then we have calculated the factory cost incurred and then the total factory or the works cost. Remaining finished overheads, administrative expenses, selling and distribution expenses, we will treat them in the income statement or in the profit and loss account, which we will prepare in the next class, and then analyze that which are the components of the cost contributing to the say to increase the cost, and if you want to reduce the cost, then we have to focus upon those particular say components, elements, and then we have to reduce the total cost of the production and increase the profits. So, remaining discussion and preparation of the income statement in this problem we will discuss in the next class. Thank you very much.